should be starting here momentarily. Yeah. Right. I am going to get everyone checked in. So it looks like we have, and I'm just going to go off the orientation on my screen. It looks like we have Wellesley, someone under the name Wellesley. If you could go ahead as I call your name, if you could unmute, let me know if your name on the screen is correct and who you're representing here today. So the woman named Wellesley.
Yep, that's correct. And yeah. And
who are you representing here today?
I'm a property owner, a couple doors down.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Welcome. We should be getting started here momentarily. And I'm sorry, as I pull up just my notes here, could you give me your full name?
I'm sorry, you're asking for my full name?
Yeah, the individual under Wesley.
It's Wellesley Henderson.
Great. Welcome. All right. We have a Pete Witt. Is that right?
Correction, that's Whitty.
Yeah.
And I'm the property owner of 4068 West 8th Street.
4608.
4068. This is the property in question.
Got it.
I'm the property owner.
Got it. Okay. All right. Welcome. See that we have a number of the zoning departments. Matt Lascheid is with us. Welcome, Matt. Okay, let's see if we have someone who's attempted to join by phone. If you could unmute.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. Your name, please.
Christopher Martin.
Okay, and who you represent here today?
Myself for Better Days Tattooing.
Gotcha. Okay, were you on the screen a moment ago trying with the video?
Yes, I was.
Okay, it looked like you were having trouble connecting to the audio. Is that right?
Well, I mean, I've never really done this before, so I'm just new to it. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So if you could do me a favor, if you could leave the phone, the setup you have with your phone on and running now. Don't touch that, but if you could bring the video back up so that we could see your face and hear you, that's how I'd prefer to go forward. That is, if you intend on providing testimony here today.
Okay.
So just pull that screen up and leave the phone open so that we can continue to hear you. All right, Mr. Whitty, are you expecting anyone else to join us here on the applicant owner side before we begin this hearing?
No, other than my tenant, CJ Martin, who you just had up on there.
Sure. Okay, so I need to read through our hearing script that will basically just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we will get started. So bear with me for 1 minute. I just need to bring that up.
Are we good to go?
Yep, that's good. You could just leave it just like that. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So this is the October 25th, 2023 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. Again, my name is David Sturkey. I'll be presiding over the hearing today. Case before us today is case number ZHUV230010. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any potential opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. For our case here today, it'll be Mr. Whitty and Mr. Martin can tell me some background about the project and of course, why they think that I should grant the relief that is requested. I will then move to any member of the public to provide any testimony that they would like in response to the applicant's presentation. I'll go to Matt Lashide, the member of the zoning department, to provide any testimony in addition to his staff report. I'll then I'll then go back to the owner and the applicant to respond to any of the comments that they've heard from the public or from the zoning department. I'll have some, excuse me, I'll have some questions along the way. And then I'll allow the applicant and the owner to make any closing remarks. After all presentations have been concluded, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay. The final thing I need to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, really doing anything other than just strictly observing, then the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if that's you, if you could take yourself off of mute now, I'll need all of the people that are going to testify to raise their right hand and to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Great. Okay, Mr. Whitty or Mr. Martin, who's going to be taking the lead here on telling me about this application?
That would be me.
Who is it?
It's me, Mr. Martin.
Okay, Mr. Martin, the floor is yours.
So I just recently got this place. I've been tattooing for about 10 years. I've been in a few shops myself and worked for other people, and it just never worked out for me. Tattooing is something that I take pride in. That's what I do. I mean, it's who I am. It's not just an occupation, or it's a lifestyle. I've been doing this my whole life. I've been drawing since I was a kid. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to own my own studio, and it's working out good because I've never lived out of a 7-minute window of this neighborhood. Everyone on the west side knows me. I do conventions, I do guest spots, and I just want to make a beautiful place for people to come get tattooed at.
Okay, great. So it looks like today you're asking for a variance to have 0 parking spaces, or in other words, the zoning code requires that you provide 7 parking spaces, and you're proposing that 0 off-street parking spaces be associated with the property. So can you tell me why I should grant that relief, or why you don't think it's important to have the parking spaces?
Sure.
And you can both handle this. So
You want to go ahead, Pete?
Yeah, let me point out a couple of things about the building. The building was built in 1930 at a time when parking spaces were not a consideration for commercial retail structure. And so literally the entirety of this building's existence has been in what is predominantly a residential neighbor community of West Price Hill. It has never had a parking lot associated with it. When it was first constructed, it would have housed a pharmacy, a grocery store, a bar, restaurant, and a butcher shop. And so there were 4 original spaces of the building that over time, there's been some melding together of a couple of the units. But literally, one of the tenants in the building, Grody Barber, has been in the same space in this building since 1972, operating a similar business as a tattoo studio would, meaning appointment-driven customer base. Prior to CJ leasing the space, it had literally been occupied by a bar for, my understanding is, its entire existence. Since I acquired the building in 1995, there has been a bar tenant of that space until about 2019, when the bar closed and vacated the space, leaving the vacant space available for a new use. So really, the background on the building, I think, speaks volumes as to why this zoning variance should be allowed. If not for a commercial tenant, there would not be a practical reuse for the space, and we would not, we would have a hard time being able to use the space if this isn't granted for any commercial use, I would assume. But with the nature of a tattoo studio, again, low volume, obviously much lower volume than a bar, it seems practical that CJ's business would be granted the variance, as it doesn't seem to be obtrusive to the surrounding neighborhood.
Gotcha. And let me go out of order here for a minute. Mr. Lascheid, this is an RMX residential mixed zoning district, is that correct?
That's right.
Is there any commercial use that's allowed in this space outside of a tattoo? Or
Not really.
there's no commercial uses
I mean,
that
I don't know if
are
you call it
allowed?
a daycare center or a school or a church, but no, not really.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. All right, Mr. Martin, a couple more questions for you. Mr. Whitty mentioned that this would be appointment only. Is that the business plan, or maybe you could talk about what you think the frequency of the business and the visitors will be?
Sure. Predominantly, it's going to be appointment only, with an exception of a few days out of the month for walk-ins and a couple flash events that I plan to have. But yeah, mostly appointment only,
And I don't know if it's chairs or tables you use for that, but how many tattoos will be able to be performed at one given time?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean,
Sorry.
mean,
so there's
where-
like 6 chairs in a barber shop, meaning you can do 6 haircuts. How many tattoos could you do?
Okay, so basically my plan is to have at least 4 to 5 artists eventually. I mean, that's going to come with time. Nothing happens overnight. I got to make sure, got to go through people, do the whole thing, find good people to build a team with, but it's to be determined.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. And Mr. Whitty, you said that this was occupied by a bar until 2019.
Correct.
Have there been any efforts between 2019 and now to find another tenant? And if so, can you tell me about those efforts?
Yeah, we had well, at one point I considered moving my own business, which is currently located on Glenway, into the space, and decided against that. After I had decided against that, we then marketed the space, and we were contacted by some prospective bar owners, but I was not comfortable with their background and was unwilling to pursue those negotiations further. We were contacted by a couple retail-oriented businesses. One essentially wanted to be a junk store, used stuff. We declined pursuing that potential tenant. And upon being approached by CJ with the tattoo studio idea, it really resonated with us, just because, like I said, Grody Barber in the space immediately next to this one has been operating quietly, seamlessly inside the neighborhood. So it was of interest to us. And so meeting him and understanding his talents and current business potential, we thought that he would be a fine tenant to pursue and finish out negotiating a lease with.
Okay. Thanks. I think that's all the questions I have now. Anything else from Mr. Martin or Mr. Whitty before I move on to the public and the zoning department? Okay. Great. Let's see, Ms. Henderson. Is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation here?
I just have a few questions just to kind of understand the space. Like I said, I'm co-owner of the property just 2 doors down on the same side of the street. And it seems like most of the building is vacant. Is that right, Mr. Woody? Like Brody, does that take most of the square
Yeah,
footage?
no, the building is 100% leased. So
Oh, okay.
Right.
the end spot is GGB Wrestling. He does younger aged traditional wrestling, not big time wrestling. He does wrestling training, and so he occupies the end space. Then Grody takes up the whole middle of the building. Well, I should say they have like an L shape, so they go from front to back.
Okay.
And so the CJ space, the end space, also is like an L shape that also goes front to back. So between 3 tenants, the building is 100% occupied.
I see. Okay. Because I've gone around that building many times, obviously driving by it, and the wrestling part always looks a little vacant.
Yeah, well, he
does-
operates. He's like more of an evening driven, not a daily scheduled type business, and so he has times when they kind of are busy, where it's like a class full of younger kids and their parents will be around, but those are not frequent at all, and as you can tell,
Yeah.
and generally, really during the business day, I think he's maybe in there just doing some stuff. I will say there is some adult. I know that law enforcement actually will do some training there also, where they practice hand-to-hand type maneuvers, I guess you would say. And so from time to time, that tenant will have maybe some daytime activity, but because it's more grade school oriented and a lot of it through the school year, the activity is usually generally early evening.
And are they allowed to use parking at the church during like off hours? Does the church, St. William's, allow that?
I would be between the church and them. I will tell you, I myself had my business in the building at one time. It was in the space occupied by the wrestling school. I also owned the bar in the building at one time. Now I'm a parishioner of St. William, lifelong actually, and live only 2 minutes down the street from the building.
Mhm.
And I was able to kind of have an arrangement with the church where as long as there was no conflict, they did not mind. And I do have a good working relationship with the current pastor, Pastor Zach at St. William. And he knows and understands that if he's ever has an issue, certainly he could reach out and we would address it. But in terms of if that's happening now, it would seem to be rare, but if it's happening now, I'm not sure if there's been a discussion between my tenant and the church directly. I just know my own personal relationship with St. William.
I just wonder if that would be a viable option for, overflow parking or whatnot.
Yeah,
Utilizing.
I think it kind of naturally happens, honestly. And if it's not conflicting with church activity, I don't think they mind. Because really, you may or may not know, directly across West 8th from the church used to be a Seton Knights of Columbus Hall. Now they actually rent that out as a reception space. And quite often you will see parties so big that they themselves are parking in like St. William's driveway that's down, off of West 8th and then wraps around and goes out onto Sunset. And I know the people that run that place, and again, the church doesn't seem to mind. And honestly, if the church has a function, they overpower everybody else anyway. If they have a big function, their driveway fills up, their parking lot up at Sunset and St. William fills up, and they too fill up the streets of West 8th and Sunset. Mass on Sunday morning, if you pay attention, all of a sudden the Sunset and West 8th fill up with cars, all of those being parishioners attending Mass or something at St. William.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like initially CJ is the only artist, and then the goal would be to grow it, obviously. But do you have like a proposed business hour?
I do. Normally on weekdays it would be 10 to 10. We wouldn't be accepting any appointments. And I got this from a shop I used to work at. No one is to start a tattoo in the shop after like 7 o'clock. That way you're not here all night, and you know what I mean? And, so it would be, my normal business hours would be from 10 to 10.
And I
Yeah.
wanted to interject on that, Matt. CJ has explained to me, I do not have a tattoo, but sometimes a tattoo can take several hours, right, CJ? I mean, you might have somebody in a chair for
Absolutely.
5-6 hours or something like that crazy. So really, imagine that there's just one person sitting in one chair, and that's taking up 5 to 6 hours of a business day. So, yeah, I had no idea that they actually take that long sometimes.
Yeah, I think, we're fortunate because we have a driveway with parking behind our building, but not every property in Price Hill and West 8 has that. But yeah, as people come home from work, I think just being cognizant that people are going to need to come home and have a place to park. So obviously CJ is going to have one person at a time, so one car is not going to be a big impact on that. But yeah, just kind of curious as to the walk-in hours. And
yeah, I will say anecdotally, honestly, we have some of the neighbors, residential neighbors, seem to be operating their business out of their residential property, and so that there are constantly work vans parked on West 8th that seem to be jamming up our building. Honestly, sometimes these work vans get parked in front of our building for hours on end, and they have nothing to do with the activity in our building. And they're not turning over like, when we used to have parking meters around the building, it was helpful because it promoted the idea of turnover, especially for the barber shop. And now those are all gone. And so sometimes people will park around our building for days. We've had an issue on Sunset on the side of our building where literally cars have been parked there for a week at a time. And those are the problems in the neighborhood that have kind of developed in kind of recent years that I think all of us are trying to having to figure out, because there is definitely a lot of residential and seems to be more cars parking around those residential than used to be, especially in the time that I've owned that building.
well, I know the neighbor between you and us, they typically have work trucks and a work van out there that belongs to them, and it sits there a lot. So,
And Ms. Henderson, do you have any other questions or comments in regards to the application?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time and your testimony here today. I'll go over to the zoning department, Mr. Lashad. Anything?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, generally, so the property is zoned multifamily residential. So this zoning district does not allow commercial uses as we've outlined. Historically, the building was built prior to the adoption of the zoning code about 100 years ago. So it's understandable that it, does not meet the current requirements because it was built before they existed. With that in mind, I think that a barber shop is an appropriate use variance here. As Mr. Whitty outlined, it's fairly quiet, fairly low impact. I would agree.
Tattoo shop, right?
Or I'm
You said
sorry.
barber shop.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was gonna get to the fact that there's a barber shop next to it, but yeah, tattoo shop. Yeah, I would say a tattoo shop is also fairly low impact. Not a lot of noise or people coming in and out frequently like you might have had with a restaurant or a bar or other commercial uses. So for those reasons, I think a use variance would be necessary to bring this commercial building into a productive use. I don't think it would be fair to require the building only be used for residential purposes. It's not a residential building and it never has been. In terms of the parking variance, the building again was built prior to the requirements for parking and prior to the real adoption of automobiles as we use them today. So it's understandable that the building did not have any parking when it was built. There's a bus stop right in front of it. There is on-street parking. So given the expectation that there won't be a large amount of vehicular traffic and there is a bus stop and on-street parking, I think a parking variance is reasonable here. For both of those reasons, staff is happy to recommend approval of all the requested relief. And let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your testimony and your work on the staff report. Okay, any final words from Mr. Whitty or Mr. Martin before we adjourn here today?
Not at
Okay.
all.
Okay, great. So I haven't had a chance to review the application materials and the staff report. Based on that, based on the testimony that I've heard here today, I am going to approve the application. I agree with staff and with some of the arguments made by Mr. Martin and Mr. Whitty about the history of this building. I do agree that this is a low impact use. I appreciate that other tenants were explored and they seem to be a little bit not as good of a fit as a business like this. And so based on all of that information, again, I am going to approve the application. I need to formalize that approval in a written decision. Those typically take, as I said at the beginning, about 2 weeks. I'll do everything I can to get that to you as soon as possible. As soon as I finish the decision, I put it into a PDF and I email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. So you all will have it really just moments after it's complete. As soon as you have that decision, Mr. Lascheid will be able to approve the permitting on the zoning side, and hopefully you guys can move forward at that time.
Correct, because this is the written verification that I need for the health department to come inspect and tell me that I'm good to go.
Gotcha. Yeah, we have slowed down a little bit from the summer rush. So like I said, I'll try and get that out to you as soon as possible. I know that, timing can be crucial for you on this. So,
Yeah.
I'll do everything I can to get it to you as soon as possible. And if you're wondering where I'm at on it, or, just like an update, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to let you know where I'm at or give you a status update.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. All right. Any other questions now? Great. Well, if you do have any questions later on, feel free to reach out to me, or I'm sure Matt would be happy to answer questions on his end as well. But good luck with the project and good luck with the business. Hope you all have a great